I remember morale as a concept first being introduced to me in my teenage years. Not in any formal way, mind you, not through schooling or anything like that, but rather in the movies and literature I consumed at that time. I used the context clues in those stories to formulate an idea of what it meant and how it might impact the situations I might find myself in. Thinking back on it now, I realize that might have left some gaps in my knowledge on the topic. I intend to use this video as an exercise to round out that knowledge and also see how it might apply to gaming. Hopefully you might find it informative and maybe entertaining as well. I feel like a good place to start would be to simply look at some definitions. Dictionary.com defines morale as emotional or mental condition with respect to cheerfulness, confidence, zeal, etc., especially in the face of oppression or hardship. Cambridge.org defines it as the amount of confidence felt by a person or group of people, especially when in a dangerous or difficult situation. Merriam-Webster.com defines it as the mental and emotional condition as of enthusiasm, confidence, or loyalty of an individual or group with regard to the function or tasks at hand. They also define it as a sense of common purpose with respect to a group. It's cool to read those definitions and all, but I feel like the best way to express your understanding on a topic like that would be to pull out the major points and then string them together in your own words. Me doing that would sound something like saying morale is the mental and emotional state of an individual or group, usually expressed through cheerfulness, zeal, enthusiasm, or confidence in relation to the execution of a task or meeting some sort of objective in the face of difficulty, hardship, or oppression. Now, why is morale important? I'm surprised this was not explicitly stated in the earlier definitions, but morale is believed to be a contributing factor to a group or individual's ability to execute a task or meet an objective. High levels of morale leads to higher levels of productivity, whereas lower levels of morale can hamper performances. I usually see examples of morale being monitored and manipulated in companies that treat it as a factor to help them meet their corporate objectives, in sports teams that hope to keep a mental edge over tough competition, and in depictions of war where captains and generals evaluate their soldiers' mental readiness to face what lies ahead. You can find examples of morale being a factor in gaming too. Game developers, just like other corporate entities, will strive to get the best performance from their employees. Think about your favorite games and the companies that make them. It's not uncommon to hear about games having long, difficult development times. Managing morale becomes a factor. High-level esports players compete in high-stress environments against strong opposition. The rising popularity of streaming platform has made it easier for us to see the emotional state of these players as they face their challenges in real time. I even notice it in the casual games I play, in 1v1 fighting games, MOBAs and team shooters. It can be surreal at times, but I can almost feel emotions and attitudes of my teammates and competitors swell and deflate as we win or lose over the course of a gaming session. Even when playing remotely, using programs like Discord to communicate, I often feel the air thicken with emotion around me. When I initially plotted the structure of this video, the next segment was to discuss the factors that increase and decrease morale. However, I feel like there's something I must address first. An issue that came to my attention when researching this video. I don't think it's truly possible to measure morale. It's an intangible thing. There's no recognized unit of measurement for it either. A lot of the articles I've read seem to use a combination of correlation and surveys as a form of measurement, but I feel like this may be problematic. Correlation usually involves comparing two or more related variables with the hopes of better understanding their relationship. An example might be to compare the amount of rain in an area to the amount of crops a farmer could grow. We can assign a count to the number of crops and we can measure the amount of rainfall to arrive at the conclusion that farmers grow more crops during the rainy season and less crops during the dry season. With regard to morale, companies tend to correlate it with employee turnover and absenteeism. However, whilst you can count turnover and measure absenteeism, you can't morale itself. Additionally, there may be other factors in play that affect those variables. Surveying can be similarly problematic. They tend to involve using questionnaires that ask persons how they feel about a matter, typically on a scale ranging from dissatisfied to neutral to satisfied. Surveying as a methodology can have problems with biases, insufficient sample sizing, user fatigue, and other factors that may result in incorrect information. These issues lead me to doubt the certainty with which the articles I've read can make the claims that they do. Honestly, I find it very frustrating. Regardless, I do think it's still worth examining. I've experienced a lot of these factors in action in my personal life, in work, sports, and in gaming, and I think you guys might find it interesting, maybe to see if you could personally relate to them as well, or even learn something that you might want to try out. There are many articles online that describe factors that negatively affect morale in the workplace, but it was surprisingly easy for me to translate 5 commonly mentioned points into the gaming environment. The first of which is a lack of acknowledgement for good plays, and this could happen in individual and team games. This relates to the extrinsic appreciation for playing well, that is the recognition outside of whatever internal sense of accomplishment you get from doing something great. Think about when you beat a particularly difficult level in a game, expecting to get some kind of reward and get nothing, no trophies, anything like that. Or when you make an impactful play in a team game but you get no props from your teammates. This can sometimes take a toll on your morale. Unclear and misunderstood expectations, particularly in team games, can be a problem. You're on a different plate from your teammates. You each want different things from the gaming experience that might conflict with each other. Think about someone who wants to play casually teaming up with someone who takes the game more seriously. This pairing can lead to some frustration on both sides. A lack of trust between you and your teammates. You don't believe that they are capable of executing their roles. You spend more time thinking about what they are doing rather than what you are doing. This can sometimes lead to micromanagement and toxic behavior. A lack of autonomy. You don't feel like you're making meaningful contributions in the game. What you do doesn't really matter. This can lead to disillusionment and to you asking, what's the point of this? Malfunctioning tools or hardware. The internet dropped. Controller begins to drift. Computer crashes mid-game. These are things you sometimes have no control over and can leave you feeling helpless and give your morale a serious hit. Many of the factors that raise morale in gaming seem to simply be the inverse of those that negatively affect it, coupled with a heaping spoonful of communication. The first being acknowledging good plays in team games. It's important to take the time to highlight and discuss well-executed plays and maneuvers with your teammates after a game. Making progress towards your goal or objective can help boost morale, and this could be observed in individual and team games. Sometimes just acknowledging that you're closer to completing a game is important. In competitive games, you may also be able to notice this even if you are on a string of losses. Were you any closer to a win in the recent games as compared to when you first started? Are you slowly reducing the margin of defeat? Performing meaningful tasks is important. Having members understand how their specific role on the team contributes towards the attainment of the team's goal can help assuage issues related to a lack of autonomy, self-development, and growth. Getting better at the game can boost your morale. This can be achieved in a multitude of different ways, through experience and training, looking at guides, working with a coach or mentor, etc. Taking breaks. It's a strange idea to internalize, but you can actually experience fatigue from playing any game over a prolonged period of time. Taking breaks can help minimize this fatigue and boost your morale. That about brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for listening if you made it this far. I'm curious to know if any of this information was new to you guys at all, if you even think about morale when you're gaming, and if something was new, if you think it might be applicable in the situations you guys find yourselves in. Also, I was curious to know if you had any examples of morale as a game mechanic. Like, I was thinking about it. I know that EA Sports does it a little bit with FIFA and I think Madden. And I was thinking that maybe some of the Fire Emblem games had it, but I looked at Three Houses and I believe they have a motivation system, which is a little bit different. So if you have any examples that you came across in your game, and maybe you could put in the comments down below. Other than that, Ben, and that was just something to think about.